Folks, I am so glad to be here. So excited. This is one event I've done. This is the second one with the Test Tribe. I've done. I really enjoyed it, and just getting ready for this has been an exciting thing for me. But we're going to talk today about nothing fails like success, and so let's get started right away. And we're going to talk about complacency and what got us to where we are. As mentioned, the good thing that I get to do here is I don't have to talk about what all the things I've done, which people usually don't care anyway. They just want to know what you're doing today and what you're going to tell them about today. And the thing that because I'm going to talk about a lot of these things as part of my presentation, but I will tell you that I do have a book, The Drive-Thru's Not Always Faster, as mentioned, and I do hope you get to check it out. It's been a really fun book, and it's got 30 short stories, so it's easy to read. And you'll get through it very quickly. And I hope you'll enjoy it if you try it out. But today we're going to talk about nothing fails like success. And I was listening to Stephen Covey, and I love Covey and his 7 habits and his 8th habit and all of his other habits that he's taught the world before he passed away. But one of the things he said was, nothing fails like success. Now, I don't think that was his own phrase, and it wasn't something he made up. It's been out there for a while. And in fact, when I started researching, I saw that Robin Sharma was the guy or the person that wrote that quote. And then the additional line to nothing fails like success is because when you're at the top, it's easy to stop doing the very things that brought you to the top. And that's the thing that Covey keyed on and kept his point on, was that things that make you successful today may not be enough for tomorrow. There's books out there that say what got you to here may not get you to the next stage and the next level. And we learn that. We've seen situations with companies and people that we know. And so today we're going to talk about a few of those. And I'm really excited to share this story with you. The first one is Blockbuster Video. Now, I'm going to start with a real example of a company from the 80s and 90s and even early 2000s that became complacent. In the 1980s, the only way people could get videos and watch movies after the theater was to buy the videotape, and they were outrageously high. So a lot of people got a great idea and said, let's start creating video stores. And one such store was Blockbuster Video, and it was huge. It was amazing. I was a member, of course, and a lot of you probably were if you're in the U.S. and maybe even India as well. But a little bit about Blockbuster and what got them to where they were. 1985, they were founded by a guy named David Cook in Dallas, Texas. In 1987, 3 investors bought it. One of those investors was a guy named Wayne Huizinga, who was the waste management owner. It was a really big company here for garbage and trash disposal. But in 1988, they were the leading video store in the United States. In the 90s, early 90s, they launched their 1,000th store. 92, they bought some video stores in the UK, and now they're at 2,800 stores. 1994, Viacom, the company that did MTV and Nickelodeon, bought them for $8.4 billion. And the one thing that Blockbuster became known for in a negative way, and a lot of people joked about, was the fact that Blockbuster Video killed you with late fees. If you didn't take the video back, you could rent it for a day or 2 days, you could decide, but once you rented it, you had to have it back. And if you didn't, they started charging you late fees. And as they became a really large company, that became like $800 million of their revenue. 16% of what they were making as a company came from late fees that people were paying. Now you can imagine if we're renting videos in that time, that was a big problem with people, and people didn't like it. And things were about to drastically change for Blockbuster. A little startup company called Netflix was about to change the world for all of us. And I'm sure no matter what country you're in, you know about this company. But the cool thing was that when they started, they didn't start out as the great online streaming company that you see and use today. They started out in 1997 by a guy named Reed Hastings. He was a customer of Blockbuster who owed $40 in late fees, and he was tired of paying late fees, just like I was and just like you were if you were in the U.S. at that time. But what he did is he and Netflix would prove to change all of our worlds. and they offered DVDs sent to your home. You don't have to go pick it up. You didn't have to go to the video store and look through the videos and hope that they had the one that you wanted. They mailed them to you, and they did this for a flat monthly rate. And most importantly, they did it with no late fees. So it was a big turning point. You know, we don't even think about going to a video store now, but that was a big deal when I was a kid in the 80s. But in 2000, Blockbuster knew that Netflix was doing well, and they had an opportunity to buy Netflix. Can you believe that? If you had an opportunity, you're a huge company, multi-million-dollar into the billion-dollar company, and you have an opportunity to buy Netflix at that time. That's something I would tell myself if I could go back in time. But it would have cost them $50 million to buy Netflix. That sounds like a lot of money until you consider that Netflix today is worth $217 billion. Just amazing that we all talk about Netflix and you'd be talking about Blockbuster. What are you watching on Blockbuster today had they bought that company? So my takeaway points from that and the learning from this would be sometimes you have to go with your gut feeling. We as testers, we don't have to run from a script. We don't have to run from what we're doing and always follow what we think should be done based on book writings and textbook decisions. You can go with your gut. Sometimes going with your gut pays off, and it has the potential to pay high rewards in return when you do so. Now let's talk about the beginning of the fall of Blockbuster. In 2004, they split from Viacom, so no more connection with MTV. They were at their peak at that time with 60,000 employees and 9,000 stores with a revenue of $5.9 billion. They eliminated their late fees because people complained so much and they knew Netflix wasn't charging it. That cost them $200 million at that time to stop charging late fees. And then they started Blockbuster Online to compete. They wanted to compete with Netflix and they thought they could. You may have tried it if you were here during that time, but it didn't go very well. Netflix was thriving. Between 2003 and 2005, Blockbuster lost 75% market value, and in 2010, September of 2010, they filed for bankruptcy. It took them 4 years to be completely closed out. There's still one small store, which is another store. You can watch it on Netflix. Actually, there's a special, ironically, on Netflix about the last Blockbuster store that's standing, and it's not company owned. So check it out if you have it. It's a great story. It kind of tells you even more than what I'm telling you here. But the takeaway points I'd give to you here is this. Even at the high points, don't be fooled by success. You got to keep growing and building. Even when you think you're at the top of your game, you might not be at the top of your game tomorrow. You might not be at the top of your game a month from now or a year from now or 10 years from now. And also, most importantly, and this is something that Blockbuster didn't understand and didn't ever get their hands around, is when you realize you failed, now you have to be even more clear on how you're going to fix it. Once you're in the hole, stop digging. That's the old phrase, right? You have to do that. But let's talk about the great Jerry Weinberg, who said no matter how it looks at first, it's always a people problem. And it takes people to help a company fail. And these failures are most always due to complacency and settling with what was working for them earlier. Old solutions and approaches, they can't always be depended on to maintain success and relevance. We've got the chance to stay ahead of the curve and to not get caught up in that risk of being complacent and to be caught up in being irrelevant at the end of it. So you may be saying, Mike, okay, that's a great story. We came here to hear about you. Okay, that's great. What is my story? Well, let me tell you. It's a very interesting story and one that got me to where I am today and doing what I'm doing. The year was 1989. Yes, that is me. I don't know where this girl is now. We were both most dependable in our superlatives in high school. And but it was 1989. I was a total computer geek. I was the nerd, right? And I was the best in my class in computer science. I was taking every computer science class I could in high school and anything I could learn about computers. And I loved it. And I was at the top of my game. I was the king of the world at that time. And they asked me to go to a regional competition. And I said, I'm there. I'm the man. I'm the GOAT, right? The greatest of all time. I'm going to go there and I'm going to win this competition. I was so ready. And when I got there, I came in last, very last. There were 10 of us competing in that computer contest, computer science contest, and writing code. These people were hacking away. I was just watching in awe because I was the best where I was, but I wasn't the best at that competition. Took me, it got in my head, right? It was very humbling. The thing I'll say to you is this: I chose to only see my classmates in school. And when I stepped out of the school doors and I saw the world, I realized that I went from first to worst. You may be the best person in the room, but are you the best person in the building and the best person in the city? Don't limit yourself to the best, being the best in your company. Expand to be the best in the world. Don't just look around and say, okay, I'm good here, and then realize I may not be good everywhere. You got a lot of people out there. There's hundreds of people right here today that you can communicate with, you can work with, you can reach out to me. We can learn together, and we can be better than just what we do at work and just what we do day to day in our jobs. So let's talk about my career path. I started out in 1993, my first job. Some of you probably weren't even born then, and that makes me a little sad, but it's okay. I started out as a developer, and I said I was going to do that for the rest of my life. I'm going to always be a developer. Well, then I became a development lead. I got into the PMO. That was exciting. Program Management Office. That was awesome. I learned a lot about business and how to work with stakeholders more and how to understand what the business wants. And I think it helped me in my career, but it wasn't for me. And I went back to being a development manager in 2002. And the part I loved about that and how it links in with failures is that I got to do some great things with the team who were now working on my code that I wrote years before. And I was able to help them and show them and guide them on what not to do. And that's the best thing you can do as you become a lead and you become a manager and you move into management roles and leadership roles, is you get an opportunity to help people not have the same failures that you had because you learned from it. And then came 2005. I got an opportunity to use some of the company money to take a trip down to Tampa, Florida. And honestly, I'll be honest with you, I'm not joking. I only went down to Tampa, Florida to go to Tampa, Florida. I had a lot of things I wanted to do there. I enjoy the travel, and I signed up for a course in testing. And I got there, and I was the only non-tester in the room, full of people, and it changed me. I realized that was my attachment. It was the thing that I wanted to do, and I wanted to do it more than I wanted to do development, and I wanted to bring testing back to my company, because at that time my company was a very big $50 billion company, but they had not started a testing group within the organization. Our developers did the code and tested their code. Isn't that crazy? If you knew who this company was, you would smile. If you know who I am from my past, you'll know the company. And it was crazy. But we implemented a practice, and we became an official test team, and I left development and moved into the test team in 2008, and it's been the same, and I've worked in only testing groups since then. But you may be asking me, was it a good start? Did you start well, Mike? Did you take what you learned and really be good at what you did? And I'd love to say, yeah, everything's rosy and awesome and it's perfect and it all worked out great. But I learned a lot, and I came very close to researching. I came very close to everything I could look at. And as James Buck said in yesterday's panel, was something about looking at YouTube, and there's so many videos that are taking people in the wrong direction. I was that guy. I was watching everything and reading everything and learning everything that I could. And I probably was looking at a lot of the wrong stuff. Like I learned V methodology. That was me. I was the V man, not the V man anymore. Learned about certifications. Don't have time for that. We'll come back at another day. I focused on test cases and test steps and having everything fully documented and what I was going to do. Can you see where I was going in the early stages of 2005 and 6 and 7? I even was doing bad metrics, and if Michael Bolton is watching, I'm sorry, Mike. You actually took time with me in 2011 at a conference, Star East, down in Florida, and you changed my whole thinking about metrics. And that's one of the things I learned, and I'll tell you as a side note here, you get people in this community who are willing to help you that don't even know you, and it doesn't matter what level you are, whether you're big, small, or whatever. Michael Bolton didn't know who I was from anybody else on this planet, but I met him and I asked him about metrics, and he sat down and had lunch with me at that conference, and it changed me. It changed me and made me want to help others. That's why I'm here today, because of those things like that. All right. So what happened after that? Because it's been a long time, right? Since 2008 and 9. Well, in 2011, my life began to move really fast. I started attending and speaking at conferences. In 2014, I left my 20-year career with a company to take a chance on a new role as a QA architect. I've got a QA architect here working with Test Tribe right now that's on my team. He knows what that role involves. That wasn't the role that I got, Sandeep. But the boss was horrible, and I left. And I took another job in 2015 and became a program manager for a QA team, and had QA managers working with me and for me. And the company got bought out and they laid me off. I'd never been laid off in 23 years, and I was surprised and shocked, but you know what? Things have a way of working themselves out. 2016, I finally met my home for growth. My current company that I'm working with right now, I started their testing team. They empowered me to do it the right way. We built the team from 0 to 12 testers, and we're still growing today. We focused on the strong skills for the core team, and then we looked at people who have potential to build that team out. My takeaway is a great quote from Tony Robbins that says, "Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure." I got a lot of great things to say about my career. The company that I worked with for 20 years gave me great things. I got some great stories that I got to pull, and met some wonderful people along the way. But the fulfillment came when I got to do testing my way at my current company. And you may not get that option, right? I'm not telling you go find you a company that doesn't have a testing team and go work there and build it up. Don't do that. You'll blame me and hate me later. But you may not get to build your own team, but you can implement your ideas and you can grow together and build your team out, even if you don't have that luxury of building up one from the ground up. Now, what are we doing now? Well, I enjoy the part that many people, and there's several of my team members watching right now, and I'm glad you're here. You guys really support me, and I love and appreciate what you do for me. What we do at our company right now is we try to inspire the rest of the team to be excited about quality, to be excited about testing, to be excited about what we're doing when we investigate. As Karen Johnson said yesterday, we're investigative people. Our job is to investigate the product and to talk about the results of what we find. We're reporters, right? We don't create the problems. We review and talk about the problems. And that's what we want people in our company to see and be excited and come to us and beg us to help and to be in engaging with each other. That's what we want to do. So it's time for your retrospective. And if you're on an agile team, we do this all the time now, right? We get to the end of an iteration and we got to do a retrospective. That's the new term for lessons learned, right? So let's take what we've heard here, what you've learned from the Blockbuster story, what you learned from my shortcomings and my stories, and let's talk about you. Steve Jobs, I saw him do a presentation at Stanford many years ago, and before he passed away, and he said, "For the past 33 years, I've looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do today? And when the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know that I need to change something." So the question you've got to ask yourself today is, do you love what you're doing? And are you living the dream in your current role? And if you're not, what's holding you back? What's keeping you from doing what you want to do in your career? And what's keeping you from doing what you want to do in the future? And what skills and things you want to learn? So let's look at some of those takeaways. Today is the day you need to start. There's an old saying that says, a year from now, you're going to wish you had started today. You will. And I've done that many times on many things that I've regretted not starting right away. Start it today. You got some ideas? What's your vision? Do you have a vision for where you want to be and what you want to do in your career? And most importantly, is there a skill that you want to learn that you don't have right now, or something that you wish you could be doing, but you haven't learned it yet? Is it something within your company? Is it something online, some kind of course? Is it something you heard people talk about here at this event or online, any webinars and things that you've done? What kind of things would you like to learn to improve yourself and to make yourself a better, a winner out there in the testing community? But now let's think about a couple of other questions. And there's the fun ones, right? What would you do differently if you knew you could not fail? Wouldn't that be great to think that you could wake up tomorrow and say, here's the one thing I really, really want to do, and I have zero chance of failing. I can do this. What would you do? What is the one thing you would do if you knew you couldn't fail? And you have to ask yourself that. Now, put that in your mind, because I want you to think about it. And then when you say, well, that's the one thing I would do if I couldn't fail, we need to think about that. And you think about, why don't I do it anyway? The second question would be, what would be worth doing even if you knew you could fail? Those are some of the passions that really get into your mind and make you think, this is something I'm going to do no matter what. I'm going to learn this new skill. I'm going to take on this new opportunity at work. I'm going to put it on myself to get the rest of the team fired up about what we do in testing. And I want to sit side by side with the development team. I want to talk to the product owners. I want to talk to the project managers. I want to talk to the business analysts. I want to get a change. I'm going to see a change in the company and the people that I work with. And sometimes that is going to be a passion that you have that you're going to do, even if there's a chance that you could fail. This one is even more critical than the other one, because this one is one that you might be doing already. But focus on those things that you're saying to yourself, I'm going to do this even if I might fail. And remember this, you're never going to be this age again. You're not going to be the age you were yesterday. Today's the day. I put off things. I've done a lot of things in my life that I've put off. And I will be honest that I've been the master procrastinator many times. But procrastination kills things. It really kills the opportunity for you to get out there and really grow and to learn new things. Take a chance. Ironically, we talk about Blockbuster and Netflix. All you have to do is maybe cut a couple of hours of Netflix out a week. Cut some times you're out playing mobile games and sitting on social media. Take some time for yourself to learn what you want to learn, what new skills you want to learn. Engage with people in the community, which would then require you to go back to the social media. There's tons of people out there. And like I said earlier, with Bolton and others, James, Karen, Pete Whalen, all you folks that I've heard here, Ajay's such a great support for me. He's read my book and he praises my book everywhere. Thank you for that, Ajay. And the thing that I say to everybody is this community is strong. You reach out, you post out there that you need some help and you want help. These folks are going to help you. I'm going to help you. We want to help you grow. You're not alone in this. That's the beautiful part. I should have added an extra bullet here or an extra block that says, what would you do if you knew you didn't have to do it alone? Because that's a big thing that just covers it all. You don't have to do it alone. We can do this together. And don't be afraid, right? There's doubt and there's faith. We can go on faith. You take that chance. Just imagine, had the guy from Netflix not taken that chance, we'd still be paying late fees for Blockbuster probably, right? Or the world would be a whole different place. We wouldn't have the big red Netflix on every device we have and all over the world. We'd have something else, I'm sure, because somebody took faith and went out on faith and did it. Don't be afraid to fail. Failures, we've heard people talk with some great people who've talked about some big failures that they've had, and they've made it through it. There's a book out there called Good to Great by Jim Collins. It's a great book. I enjoy it, and I've loved it. I read it many years ago, decades ago. It's probably a little outdated now, but it still gives you the same theory. What are you doing to go from good to great? There's good companies and there's great companies. But you need to ask yourself, it's one thing to be good, and it's one thing to be great. But what are you going to do to be the best you? What are you going to do when it's all said and done? There was a phrase, I'm taking an executive training course, which is amazing, and asking me some of these questions. And one of the things it said is, if you knew you had 6 months left to live, what would you stop doing? And then they ask, what would you start doing and what would you keep doing? But it really makes you think, if I knew this was going to end soon and I wasn't going to be here much longer, what am I going to stop doing? But what am I going to go out there and start doing? What are you going to do to be the best you while you got time and you can do it? Remember, next to last slide here, that the drive-thru is not always faster. It's not just the name of a really cool book. It's also a philosophy that I learned by sitting in drive-thrus. I didn't get this size easily. But you got to remember, I told somebody in the drive-thru window once about my book, and the drive-thru person said, well, it may not be faster, but it is more convenient. They were exactly right. You know, you can sit in the car and wait in line. You don't have to get out and go in, but sometimes going in is going to be faster. I found it hundreds and thousands of times. Don't just do things for convenience. Don't take the easy way. Sometimes there's a better, faster, more efficient way. And don't tie yourself to a specific process, even if it seems like everybody's doing it that way and it's been proven for years. Blockbuster did that. We don't know them anymore. We just watch them on Netflix specials. You can be creative. You can be exploratory. Ask questions. Be curious and learn every day, because that's what you have the potential to do, is to change the world by not just following the status quo. And speaking of changing the world, you have the potential to be remembered for all of the things you're doing today and tomorrow and onward. You don't have to be Sheryl Weinberg, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg to make a difference. You can change the world right where you are today, doing what you're doing and what you're about to do. You can be the next Netflix. You can be the next big tester that's doing these talks. I'm not a big guy. I learned that quickly at events. I met some big people, and most of them spoke at this event, which makes me very proud to be part of it. I'm just a little fish in a big sea, but I'm happy to be part of this. And ask yourself, what are you going to be doing to be great? And that, folks, is the end of my time. And I want to thank you for having me here and letting me be part of this.
I have a very curious question before I thank you, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Are you going to buy McDonald's?
I think I should, right?
Almost. It sounds like
I
you
would
own
sell
it.
the book.
Indeed. Well, thank you so much. It's always pleasure to hear from you, your interesting insights and beautiful stories. Thank you for sharing these very important lessons, which I'm very sure hard to gather and see it at one place. Thank you for being so self-aware and self-respecting that you could share this all with us with an open mind. There we have a question and answer round. I will just pick one question here and rest
Okay.
I would say. Okay. Rahul, have you seen companies failing due to their bad attitude towards testing due to arrogance of product success? I would like to learn from such case stories.
Yes, I have. You know, one of the previous companies that I worked for, they tried and they eventually laid us off and cut their team really short. All the best to them. I don't shop there anymore. But they tried to ask, what is the value of testing, right? And you get yourself, I do another talk called Discussions Testers Should No Longer Be Having. And the thing that I think about there is, when you start hearing people ask, why do we need testing and what is the value? You know, testing is not, you know, we can do it ourselves, right? We got the skills. Anybody can test off the street, right? That makes Anna happy to hear that, test masters. But no, not just anybody off the street. And the thing that you have to do in that situation is not get yourself in the position where you're being defensive and trying to defend yourself as a tester in the company. You have to say, you know what, forget about why I'm here and why I need to be here. Talk about what would happen if you weren't there, and what would happen if you didn't find those bugs. What is the cost of that one critical defect that's going to make it to production? And that's how I really kept our team growing for a couple of additional months and saved us for a little while, was by talking about this one major defect that we found. And I talked about how many thousands of customers for that company would see that defect and stop shopping there. And then they would tell their 3 friends to stop shopping there. And if all these people stop shopping, the average cost of a customer is this, and then you calculate it, and you're talking about millions of dollars that one defect could cause this company to lose. And I think you have to talk about it in those terms. when you're being challenged and teams don't see the value. But I'll tell you, I see several of my folks, and I'm so glad all of you are here on my team. But what this team does is they bond together and they work with the development team, and they go to them and they say, I see stuff, right? I see something that doesn't look right. And they don't have to do that, but they do. And in our company, they feel like they do. They do have to do that. And that's what we challenge people with is testing just doesn't feel like an audit routine or a police making sure that everything gets done or a checkbox at the end of the process. Testing is part of, we're a seat at the table and we're there to help people be successful.
Cool. Thank you so